Hello everyone, I hope you all had a Merry Christmas in 2013 and a Happy New Year for 2014. And this video is the post-Christmas update video, which I do every year. And in this video I will showcase all the train-related things that I got for Christmas of 2013. And stay tuned for the revealing of the mystery diesel locomotive that I got for Christmas of 2013. I will get to the mystery diesel at the very end, so please just hang in there. It will be worth the wait, and we will see that very shortly. So the first one that we're looking at right here is the Amtrak Surfline combo DVD from Pentrex. This DVD features two video productions, Amtrak the Surfline and Amtrak Surfline Cab Ride. These were made back in the 90s, and they were republished on a DVD in 2005. And it's a very, very good combo DVD set. It really is. It's got the Amtrak the Surfline and Surfline Cab Ride. The Surfline thing right here basically shows the landmarks along the line and shows the trains going by as well. And then in Amtrak Surfline Cab Ride, that's up in the cab of one of the Amtrak General Electric P32-8s, whatever they're called. This locomotive right here, the Pepsi can livery is what this was known as to some people. I do remember that being a name for these locomotives because the Phase 3 paint scheme on this particular locomotive looks similar to the older Pepsi can style. So that's why they were nicknamed Pepsi cans, if my memory serves me correctly. And I think that's what they were called as a nickname for these locomotives. And it's a very, very good DVD set. Shows the surf line from Los Angeles to San Diego as it appeared in the 90s for both of these. And another interesting thing is that 2014 is the 75th anniversary of Los Angeles Union Station. So that's another good superlative right there. Alright, so moving on, I got this Hallmark ornament set of a Lionel steam locomotive, a 264 Adriatic type, number 2037 and tender. I really believe Hallmark makes some great ornament renditions of classic Lionel trains. The 2037 was a more common steam locomotive model that Lionel made. It was not as valuable as, say, their Hudsons or their J classes and you name it. The 2037 was a more common locomotive. It wasn't a scout locomotive, but it was a bit more common than the other locomotives, such as the Hudsons and the J classes and things like that. And at least I've got the ornament of it right here with the tender, and so that's pretty cool as well. Glad I got that as well. And then I also got this right here called Rail USA Museums and Trips, Eastern States. This is a pamphlet thing right here that shows and gives information about train-related places to go on the East Coast. And on the cover right here, it's a watercolor of the Strasburg Railroad number 90, which is a 210 decapod steam locomotive that runs on the Strasburg branch line in Pennsylvania. I've been there before, very long time ago, and I did ride behind number 90. That was more than 10 years ago, though. But it's also got some other interesting places on the East Coast from Florida to Maine. And instead of photos, they have these beautiful watercolor paintings of the trains. And in fact, here's one right here of the Norfolk and Western 611. That's a watercolor right there. That's not a photo, but very, very nice watercolors in here, and a great deal of good information showing you things on the East Coast that are train related. So that's very nice, very helpful as well. Okay, now we're going to move on to the Train Simulator 2014 part of this video, where I will show you my new DLCs that I got for Christmas, and so we will take a look at that right now. The first Train Simulator 2014 add-on that we're looking at right here is the Holiday Express add-on for Train Simulator 2014. This is the first add-on that I will show you in this part of the video. It includes a model train route set inside someone's house, possibly somewhere in the United States where it snows in the winter, like New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut, but you can use your imagination of where you think it is. It also includes Ritchie Rails Pennsylvania Railroad K4 steam locomotives, Ritchie Rails EMD F7 diesel locomotives, P70 coaches, and bulkhead flat cars with various loads including toy soldiers, cookies, and gifts. The pros, advantages, and strengths of this add-on are that it's very clever and original for a concept from Dovetail Games to have a model train layout set in someone's house. The fictional Ritchie Rails Model Train Company is a parody of Lionel Trains, a famous American model train company. The route has a very nice old-time Christmas-time charm to it, yet still feels contemporary. The piano plays music if you drive over it. There's also Christmas music included that plays on the radio. This add-on is also very fun for all ages, and there are also achievements included. And it's an easy route to play if you want to level up on your XP points in the game with very easy, fair, and quick career mode scenarios. There's also some very interesting environments to run around on this layout, including a city made of cardboard boxes, a helix track up to the top of a table, and of course a loop around the Christmas tree. Now we move on to the cons, goofs, and nitpicks section of this add-on. The music that plays on the piano as you drive over it is a pre-recorded ditty that is not synchronized and does not correspond to the notes of a real piano. Sometimes the piano music won't play as you drive over it. There are no cab interiors on the locomotives, nor are there any people inside the coaches or locomotives. There are no bell sounds for the locomotives, and the K4 is listed as a third rail electric and not a steam locomotive, and also has more steam coming out of the safety valves and whistle than smoke from the smokestack. The speed limit for the entire route is listed at 100 miles an hour, but you'll derail on most curves if you exceed 40 miles an hour, and the K4 is more prone to derailing than the F7. There are no career mode scenarios for the K4, however, it is quick drive compatible with pre-made consists. There is no caboose included in order to make a complete freight train, especially one from the 1950s. There's also no coal load in the K4's tender. And since this is a model train route, I've got to ask, where's the transformer? I didn't see one anywhere on it. So that's the Holiday Express add-on that I got for Christmas of 2013. Now we move on to the next add-on, which is Stevens Pass for Train Simulator 2014. This includes the 128 or so mile route of Stevens Pass, which is also known as the Scenic Subdivision and also known as the High Line, from Mukilteo, Washington to Wenatchee, Washington. This route also has the longest train tunnel in the United States, which is Cascade Tunnel. The route also includes a BNSF H3 GE ES44 DC diesel locomotive. There are driver and non-driver versions of it. It also includes BNSF H1 EMD GP38-2 diesel locomotives, driver and non-driver versions. There's also BNSF Patched, former Burlington Northern GP38-2 diesel locomotives, non-driver and driver versions as well. And there's a whole bunch of freight cars included in this add-on. They include BNSF 3-bay covered hoppers, 50-foot single-door box cars, 60-foot oversized load flat cars, coal hoppers, automobile cars, container flat cars, center beam flat cars, refrigerator cars, and also even aircraft cars as well. There are also black tank cars, yellow center beam flat cars, Burlington Northern wood chip hoppers, cabooses, and bulkhead flat cars. And there's also some fictional GNTX container flat cars because this route was developed by GNTX. And there's also many new and custom built scenery objects for this route, and this route also includes 14 scenarios. Now the pros, advantages, and strengths of this add-on include that the freight cars have air hoses that connect to each other when coupled. Freight cars have working end-of-train device lights, also known as Fred lights to some. All the included freight cars have animated roller bearings on their trucks. There's also an animated swing bridge in Everett, and there are animated portal gates at both ends of the Cascade Tunnel. There's also some static Great Northern cabooses included. There's one of them on display at Skycomish. There's also some static Burlington Northern covered hoppers, and there's one of them that's parked at Wenatchee. There's also some static BNSF MOW pickup trucks that are included. There's also realistic railroad crossing sounds at railroad crossings equipped with flashers. There's also crossbuck railroad crossings included where there are crossings without flashers. And the distant mountains look great despite the hazy looking environment of Washington State. And the audio on the locomotives included is, overall, it's great and very clean, so that's nice. And there's also multiple track textures, including concrete tie sections and wooden tie sections, and all the ties are rendered, as well as the rails being T-rail shaped like in real life. And the static freight cars, and I've mentioned before, I have to say they are very detailed and look realistic when next to active locomotives and cars. And the railroad crossings that have flashers are synchronized to train movements in most cases. The railroad crossings that have flashers also have red flashers on them. And another great advantage of this add-on, or another strength of it, is that the GP38-2s have animated fans. Now we move on to the cons, goofs, and nitpicks section of this add-on. The alerter does not work on the ES44 DCs. There are no externally animated controls on the GP38-2s. The static Great Northern Consolidation steam locomotive is nowhere to be seen at Wenatchee and is thus not included. No scenario or locomotive achievements are included, despite career mode scenarios being included. The route does not go to Seattle, which is a shame because it's so close to Mukilteo and is the start and end point of Stevens Pass, or the scenic subdivision, in real life. And now there's no passenger content included with this, but if you do want an era-appropriate passenger train for this route, you will have to get the P42 DC Genesis add-on separately. And if you have it already, you have a great consist if you want to recreate Amtrak's Empire Builder, because that runs on the route as well. The frame rates can be laggy on this route, especially on older computers, even in more deserted areas of the route. There are also no rolling stock versions of the static freight cars that have been included with this route. There are no winterized versions of the locomotives that are included with this route, despite the fact that this route gets a lot of snowfall in real life. The names on the containers for the container flat cars are fictional, but this is not much of a surprise since that would or might require licensing fees. The tank cars that are included all have the same external number. Some Union Pacific markings are present in the ES44 DC's cab interior view. The station pedestrians are not well dressed for all seasons and look out of place for the region of where the route takes place, well, especially during the wintertime. So that's all I have to say about Stevens Pass. Now we move on to the next add-on that I got for Train Simulator 2014 for Christmas of 2013. Okay, so now we move on to Marias Pass for Train Simulator 2014. This is the 150-mile route from Whitefish to Shelby in Montana. It also includes the 13-mile Kalispell branch line from Columbia Falls to Kalispell. This is actually the longest route that Dovetail Games has made so far, just to let you know, but who knows, maybe this record will be beaten someday, I'm not sure. This route also includes the BNSF H3G ES44 DC locomotives, driver and non-driver versions. Just like with Stevens Pass, it's basically the same model. There's also BNSF patched ex-Burlington Northern SW1500 diesel locomotives. They're driver and non-driver versions of them. And then there's a whole bunch of freight cars included, including BNSF 3-bay covered hoppers, 2-bay covered hoppers, 50-foot single-door box cars, double-door box cars, coal hoppers, automobile cars, container flat cars, gondolas, center beam flat cars, and refrigerator cars. There are also black tank cars, yellow center beam flat cars, and piggyback flat cars, weathered white 4-bay covered hoppers, 8 scenarios, and new custom scenery objects, with many others also being recycled from previous Dovetail Games routes. Now we move on to the pros, advantages, and strengths of this add-on. The freight cars have working end-of-train device lights. There's a static Great Northern EMD F45 at Essex. There's a static Great Northern EMD NW3 at Whitefish. There is a static Great Northern bus at Whitefish. The roundhouse doors are open at each stall at the Whitefish Roundhouse. And as I said before, this is also the longest route made by Dovetail Games so far. The overall audio on the locomotives is clear and it's very good, I'd say. All of the included freight cars have animated roller bearings on their trucks. The ES44 DCs have working computer screens for some, but not all, locomotive information. There are also smooth curves, with some of them being super elevated. There are some gentle grade transitions. In fact, it does not feel much like a roller coaster ride in many parts of the route, which I have to say I was very frustrated with the MSTS version, because the MSTS version felt like a roller coaster ride, but not in this case with the Train Simulator 2014 version of Marias Pass. It's got some nice, gentle grade transitions, similar to the ones that are on the real route in real life. So that's much more realistic, and it's much more enjoyable now in Train Simulator 2014, at least at my point of view. And despite it being Dovetail Games' longest route so far, I have to say the frame rates are surprisingly smooth, even on older computers. Also, the rails are T-rail, just like in real life, and the ties are rendered. And the distant mountains look great and can be seen from very far distances. Oh, and another cute little thing that they did for this route was they actually re-included myself from the Northeast Corridor, the pedestrian NEC Mail TC. I basically spawn at the train stations on this route. You can see me there. And so I thought that was pretty cool that they re-included me on this route. So yes, I'm back in this route as a pedestrian, if you haven't seen that yet. Okay, and also the included locomotives have animations on most of their controls, and they animate properly. Now we move on to the cons, goofs, and nitpicks section of this add-on. The alerter does not work on the ES44 DCs. There are no externally animated controls on the SW1500s. The static cabooses are nowhere to be seen at Essex and thus are not included. However, if you have Stevens Pass, you can use the static Great Northern caboose model in Essex as replacements for the cabooses that exist there in real life. Might not be the most accurate thing, but it could probably help you a little bit. There are no scenario or locomotive achievements included, but this route did come out before the new and improved career mode included with Train Simulator 2014. One of the wipers does not animate in the cab interior view of the ES44 DCs. However, the Stevens Pass version of the ES44 DC does not have any problems with its wipers. All four of them, or how many ever there are in the cab, will animate in the cab interior view on the Stevens Pass version, but one of them does not animate on the Marias Pass version. Some Union Pacific markings are present in the ES-44DC's cab interior view. The static diesel locomotives are not as detailed when compared to the active locomotives in cars. The ammeter does not move in the SW1500's cab interior view. Station pedestrians only appear at the stations and cannot be added to other parts of the route as separate objects in the world editor or scenario editor. The station pedestrians are not well dressed for all seasons and look out of place for the region of where the route takes place. Basically, like I said before, like they included my pedestrian model again, they basically just took all the Northeast Corridor pedestrians and put them onto the stations for Marias Pass. So, basically, that just doesn't look right for Montana, because the people look either too summery or they look too businesslike, and that's why I find it to be a bit of a downside. So that's why I had to bring that up. And the included tank cars all have the same external number, just like the same problem that exists on Stevens Pass as well. There are also no wooden tie textures for the route for places like the old sidings or the Kalispell branch line. It's all the concrete ties on this route, which isn't 100% realistic because, as far as I know, there are still some areas on Marias Pass and the Kalispell branch line that have wooden ties. Also, there's no passenger content included with this route, but if you have the P42 DC Genesis add-on, then you basically have a good consist if you want to recreate Amtrak's Empire Builder, which runs on this line. The names on the containers for the container flat cars are fictional, but this is not much of a surprise, since that would require licensing fees in most cases. There are also no winterized versions of the locomotives for this route, despite the heavy snowfall this route gets in real life. The air hoses are always disconnected on the included freight cars. The no driver version of the SW1500 has a driver in it. The non-flashing railroad crossings have stop signs instead of crossbuck, which are the X-shaped railroad crossing signs. Instead, it's a stop sign with a circular railroad crossing sign on a pole, and that just doesn't look realistic in every single one of them, at least. Now, the full Marias Pass route in real life is actually sectioned from Whitefish to Havre, Montana, but the route terminates in Shelby, which is west of Havre. That being said, it would not be very realistic to have an interstate freight train terminate or change crews at Shelby, since in real life that usually does not happen, and usually happens in Havre. With the route's length as is, you could have a realistic run with Amtrak's Empire Builder, since Amtrak's Empire Builder stops in Shelby and changes crews there, or a BNSF local freight train run could also be realistic with the given length. So, that's basically what I have to say for this add-on for Train Simulator 2014. Now we move on to another one, which is the BNSF and Burlington Northern SD40-2 add-on for Train Simulator 2014. This add-on includes BNSF H3 EMD SD40-2s, BNSF H1 EMD SD40-2s, Burlington Northern Whiteface EMD SD40-2s, and Burlington Northern EMD SD40-2s. There are also BNSF 2-bay covered hoppers, 3-bay covered hoppers, 60-foot oversized load flat cars and coal hoppers included, and there's also Burlington Northern boxcars, 3-bay covered hoppers, coal hoppers, and 60-foot oversized flat cars included as well. There are also 4 scenarios included for Marias Pass. Now we move on to the pros, advantages, and strengths category of this add-on. It adds more variety for freight trains for Marias Pass and to some other American routes, with content ranging from the 1970s to 2010s. And the SD40-2s have animated fans on them as well. Now we move on to the cons, goofs, and nitpicks section of this add-on. The sounds are basically the same as the Cajon Pass Union Pacific SD40-2s, and they're primarily sounds that you have heard in movies and TV shows, which would be the horn and the startup sounds. those are just basically the same stock sounds that you've probably heard in movies and TV shows that have trains in them. So it's just basically all reused. There's nothing really custom about the sounds exactly. And there are no winterized versions of the SD40-2s, and also the air hoses do not connect on the freight cars. So that's what I have to say about this add-on for Train Simulator 2014. Now let me move on to the next one for Train Simulator 2014. The next one is the Great Northern Empire Builder add-on for the game, Train Simulator 2014. It includes Great Northern EMD F7A units, driver and non-driver versions, Great Northern EMD F7B units, Great Northern 16x4 sleeping cars, 36-seat dining cars, 48-seat day-night passenger cars, 60-seat day-night passenger cars, 844 sleeping cars, coffee dormitory cars, dome coaches, great dome lounge cars. Some people might refer to that as a super dome as well. There are also mail baggage cars and sleeper observation cars. There are also Great Northern EMD GP9s, brown box cars, brown cabooses, Great Northern reefer cars, and 3 scenarios for Marias Pass. Now we move on to the pros, advantages, and strengths of this add-on. This add-on contains a great deal of Great Northern content, which is complete for both passenger and freight of Great Northern content from the 1950s. And here's another thing. The GP9s are drivable. Look, I'm actually doing it right now. So they are, in fact, drivable. The passenger cars have passenger car views, and there's actually multiple views that you can see in those passenger cars. The cabooses also have an interior view. The Mars light animates on the F7s and as well as the observation cars. There's also a lit drumhead on the observation cars. And this is also the first complete North American Streamline era passenger train set from Dovetail Games. Now we move on to the cons, goofs, and nitpicks section of this add-on. The F7s have too much rolling resistance when the throttle is put into idle. It feels as if the brakes are on. And this also happens when you're going downhill. So that's not really realistic right there. Also, a couple passenger cars are missing to make a complete Empire Builder train from the 1950s. Primarily the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy versions of the Empire Builder cars, since the Empire Builder was a joint operation between the Chicago, Burlington, Quincy, and the Great Northern. The GP9s do not have the TSX lighting effects, however, they do have the rain on the windows effect. Air hoses are always disconnected on the passenger and freight cars that are included. The GP9s are short hood forward, based on the way the cab has been set up. In real life, Great Northern GP9s were long hood forward. The boxcars and cabooses have no markings whatsoever indicating that they are Great Northern, even though the manual claims they are Great Northern. The manual also has a screenshot of a Great Northern F7 without a snowplow, but only the snowplow-equipped version of the F7 is included. There are no winterized versions of the locomotives in this pack, and there are no scenarios for the GP9s, and there are no pre-made consists for them in quick drive mode. There's also a very limited selection of passenger car names. For example, there's no City of Spokane observation car, nor is there a Lake Wenatchee dining car. However, you can make the passenger cars nameless and have only numbers on them if you'd like, but there's no name customization, apart from what's already been made and supplied for this particular add-on. Only the dome cars, Superdome cars, and observation cars have passengers in them. All others are always empty. And also, the F7 that's included does not have any animated fans. However, the GP9 that is included does have animated fans. So that's all I have to say about this add-on. Now we move on to the last add-on, and I have to warn you all that for this one I'm going to probably have to be a little more harsh on the review, but we'll get there. Okay, and that is the Spokane, Portland, Seattle Northern Steam Locomotive add-on for Train Simulator 2014. Now, like I said, I had to warn you guys about this, and that is that this might be a bit harsh of a review because This locomotive came out 5 years ago. It came out in 2009. And I'm comparing it to other steam locomotives that are now available that have come out in more recent years. So that's why it might not be the best review I have for it when compared to other steam locomotives. However, I will be honest though, this is a pretty good steam locomotive that was made for 2009 for Railworks 1 and later. So that's my little synopsis, but I'll go into the details now. This includes the Spokane, Portland, and Seattle Northern steam locomotives number 700 and 701. Now we move on to the pros, advantages, and strengths of this add-on. All controls animate correctly in the cab interior view for the controls that animate. The sounds are clean, and they do sound appropriate for the locomotives. At least most of them do. The number 701 has the as-delivered cab interior with the classic brake handles and does not have the cab radio. And despite there being no scenarios for these locomotives, they are quick drive compatible and you can always make your own consists with them. Now we move on to the cons, goofs, and nitpicks section. Some areas of the locomotive look too photorealistic and other areas look too cartoony. The fire in the firebox doesn't flicker, it's just yellow. Steam does not come out of the safety valves when they go off. And there's no rolling stock included, just the locomotive and tender. However, the Great Northern Empire Builder add-on also includes some appropriate rolling stock for these locomotives. So if you've got the Great Northern Empire Builder add-on, you've got some pretty appropriate passenger and freight cars for them. Pretty good passenger cars for the 700 if you want to recreate a 1950s Empire Builder pulled by steam, or for possibly a modern day excursion. And the freight cars from the Empire Builder add-on are good for the 701 if you want to have a freight train from the 1950s as well. And the 700 has the as-delivered cab interior view and also lacks a cab radio. And I mention this because the 700 has been upgraded with a more modern cab nowadays because it runs an excursion service. Also, another downside is that rain does not accumulate on the windows, but the TSX lighting is included though, so you will have the working headlights. The windows can be opened in the cab interior as well, but only in the cab interior view, and it does not work on the external model. There's also no visible wheel slip, and the driver is not sitting on top of his seat. Instead, he is sitting inside it, which is a bit strange to me. So, that's all I have to say for this add-on, and now I've concluded the Train Simulator 2014 part of this video, and now we're going to take a look at the model train segment where I will ultimately reveal the mystery diesel locomotive that I got for Christmas of 2013. So we'll move on to that right now. Okay, so now we're in the model train segment of the post-Christmas update video, and this is the model train stuff that I got for Christmas of 2013. What we're looking at right now are these winterized pine trees right here. Got a 2-pack of them. And I don't know if I really am going to use them on this particular layout. I don't know. Or if I should do that more around Christmas time for the next Christmas season. But I got these. I believe they're basically appropriate for an HO scale layout. And I think they actually look pretty good with the winterization on the trees. And they've got bases on them that are simulated to look like snow. So that's pretty cool. They could come in handy if I want to do a winter scene. And that looks really nice. Or, on second thought, I could also put some colored dots on them and make them look like Christmas trees. That's another idea. And so I got those. And behind that is this short bulkhead flat car made by Atlas. And it's just a yellow one. It says TTX on the side. It also says TTJX on the side as well. But it doesn't have a particular road name on it. I did have the intentions to put some stakes or, I don't know, some supports on the side here to have the ability at least to put a load on top, and I can't really find any parts to do that. I don't really know of any support pieces. I would like to do that though, to at least have the ability to put like some logs or some pipes or even an HO scale track on there if I wanted to have, say, a broken down freight car or locomotive or something. I can put it on top of here, something like that. But I don't have the parts for that, and I'm not sure how to do it yet. So that was kind of my intentions when I first got it. But if not, not a big deal. At least I have it, and it's a pretty nice, well-detailed car for what it is. It comes unloaded, but I'm fine with that. I'm fine that it comes unloaded. At least it would make the ability for me to be creative more of a possibility. If I wanted to get creative and put a different type of load on there, I could very well do that. I just need to have some support pieces on the side so that it doesn't fall off, like some pegs or stakes or something like that that go on the side. That's maybe something I'll have to rig myself. So I got that for Christmas of 2013, and now I will show you the diesel locomotive that I got for Christmas of 2013. So I'll just back that up right now. And there it is. It's the Western Pacific Heritage Unit that's owned by Union Pacific in real life, number 1983. This is my fourth Union Pacific Heritage SD70 ACE. And in case you're wondering, this is not the first batch of SD70 ACEs that were made by MTH based on the product number of this particular locomotive. So this was not the one that was made in 2009 or 2010. This was made more recently than that. It has the later product number on it, not the older one that the other SD70 ACEs from MTH have that I have. So basically this is from the newest batch, the second batch of their run of SD70 ACEs, and I don't really notice any external differences. Maybe it's a bit stronger, or maybe some parts on it were modified a little bit. I don't really notice too much of a difference, but it's from the later batch. Now, there is a difference in the sounds, though. The horn and bell sound are different. Now, I think the horn actually sounds better on this one than the other SD70 ACEs from their first batch, but the bell is incorrect. Now, here's the thing. MTH got the bell correct on this locomotive, which is just a normal bell. It's a regular bell, and the problem is, why it's wrong, is because it's the sound of the bell that's wrong. They put the sound of an electronic bell on it. And basically in the first batch of SD70 ACEs that MTH came out with, they had the regular bell sound, and for the three that I have, the Denver Rio Grande, Chicago Northwestern, and Southern Pacific Heritage units, they all in real life, and on the models themselves from MTH, they have electronic bells on them, but they've got the regular bell sound. In this case, it's the opposite. This locomotive, the Western Pacific Heritage unit, has the regular bell, but the sound of it on MTH's model is the electronic bell version. So, in a way, if I could just swap out the sound sets, put this sound set onto the other Union Pacific Heritage units that I've got, and do a swap out, put the sounds that they've got onto this one, then I think it would be pretty accurate, I'd say. And so, yeah, that's what I have to say about this particular locomotive. It has basically all the other features that the other SD70 ACEs have, and so I'll show it to you right now. I'll start it up and we will get it going. In fact, I'm going to use the extended startup sequence on it for this video. Okay, so you just heard the horn and the bell right there. New sounds, but the bell sound is just not correct for this particular locomotive. So now I'll just have it go forward and we'll get it going there. Now I'm going to put the locomotive into its extended shutdown sequence. Okay, now it's completely shut off. So it's a great model, and I'm glad that MTH has done their homework and tried to improve the sounds on the locomotive. I just wish they would do their homework in a better way to make sure that the bell would be correct for this particular locomotive. But if I could just swap out the sound sets or something like that for the bell to be correct, then it would be perfectly all right. But other than that, it's a very well done model, and I'm glad I have it. So thank you very much for watching the post-Christmas update video for this year, and stay tuned. I've got more videos coming real soon. So take care, and goodbye.